crest a low hill in the forest, finding it lit by scattered hellfire. In the center, a demon of the old world unfurls its wings, welcoming you to your last breath. Welcome to another Zero Means You're Dead for February 2026. I'm your host, SM Hillman. Prep. Sometimes you prepare everything for the game, or this podcast, except the beginning. In moments like that, you have to improvise, like I'm doing right now. I think improvisation as a tool is overused, however. Minimal preparation still means some kind of preparation is needed. Something related to the situation you have for your players and their characters to riff off of. It's one thing to need to make up a name on the fly or to make something up because the players chose down instead of left or right. But improvising whole sessions because you did not prep anything suggests you were not ready to play that night. It's okay to say, I'm not ready, and to push in another direction. Players will much prefer your game if you're in the right headspace and prepared as opposed to making it up as you go, Indiana Jones style. Really, I guess we need an outro for the monologue, but hey, you know what? You get your pay for. Sad news. Gene Rabe, TSR writer, editor, and journalist, has passed away at the age of 68. Gene was a fantasy novelist for TSR and writer for some game lines such as Greyhawk, Dragonlance, Star Wars, and Battletech. She worked as a journalist before joining TSR in 1987, initially as a coordinator for the RPGA network. Rabe wrote, amongst other things, D&D novels such as Dragons of a New Age trilogy for the Dragonlance game world and the Piper Blackwell mysteries. She's survived by her husband, I do believe, and family, and condolences go out to all her friends and family. A lot of people I know knew Jean. I did not know her, and are saddened by her passing. So rest in peace, Gene Rabe. Drive-Thru RPG's Pocket Quest 2026 theme comes out March 2nd. Get ready for the Drive-Thru RPG's 5th annual Pocket Quest Game Jam, where you'll be challenged to design a themed pocket-sized TTRPG in 2 months. This year's themes will be announced on Monday, March 2nd. So, small, pocket-sized RPG. Get thinking. Get prepared. I'm shouting out. I'm specifically talking to you, Bob Magoo, if you're watching this, which I hope you are. Speaking of Drive-Thru RPG, we are debuting our newest feature, which is new releases. Joe put this together from games that are coming out this month or finishing up their Kickstarters. I think actual being released is what I believe they are. So enjoy this bit of video. It's our second video. It's our first video of today, but we will have 2 videos today. The first is this one, new releases, and the second one is my interview with Sarah Madsen. Sarah was kind enough to sit down with us. So stay tuned for Drive-Thru RPG, and then we'll get back to news.
When the world was enshrouded by darkness, monsters were set free. The Revival. You are Vileborn, half human, half monster, persecuted for your corrupt lineage since childhood. At odds with your nature, still coming of age, you are now being enlisted in the war against the Reviled. They want to turn you into a weapon to fight the darkness in the world. What will you do with the darkness within you?
Something that makes 13th Age feel different than many other fantasy RPGs is that it's a heroic fantasy game. Unlike Zero to Hero games where your character starts out low-powered and unimportant, your 13th Age character matters from the moment the campaign begins. You don't have to wait until you're high level to do impressive things. Your class and kin gives you fun powers and abilities right out of the gate. Backgrounds give your hero an exciting and varied life before you roll a single d20. Your icon relationships give you meaningful connections to the most powerful beings in the game world. People like the Emperor, the Elf Queen, and the Lich King know who you are. You play a key role in their alliances, rivalries, and conflicts, and your one unique thing makes you stand out from everybody else in the game. Things like, I am the reincarnation of an icon from a previous age, but I don't know which one. If you want to take center stage as big damn heroes in an RPG, check out 13th Age.
The king tells you that you'll be greatly rewarded if you rescue the princess. What do?
I put my hand on my holy symbol and I say, Great king, no reward is necessary.
I pat my direwolf and smile. Fenris and I are at your service.
I summon a ball of flame. It would be an honor to use my magic to rescue your daughter.
I approach the king, draw my dagger, and hold it over my heart. And then I stab him in the face!
Do you ever get tired of playing the good guys? Would you prefer to help rather than stop the giant spiders that are invading the town? Are you sick of always working with your party instead of just killing them and taking what's rightfully yours? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then the Widow's Web is for you. The Widow's Web is a trilogy of adventures where the players portray dark elves competing to be the sole survivor of a deadly dungeon. But it's not a free-for-all bloodbath. The champions must also survive the devious encounters set up by their dark goddess Malorachne, the Mother Spider. The Widow's Web is like nothing you've played before and offers an intense competitive experience for 6 to 8 players. So be as evil as you'd like. It'll all be over soon.
Every 100 years in the Drow city of Carrick Mars, the 8 ruling houses send a champion into the Widow's Web, a deadly labyrinth filled with monsters, traps, puzzles, and betrayal. The winner will rule the city for the next century. The losers will die horrible deaths, victims of the web's unforgiving trials. Do you have what it takes to survive not only the dungeon, but the murderous schemes of your fellow Dark Elves as well? Find out in the Widow's Web, Trials of the Drow.
Path of Sovereignty, Book 2. Written by Sean Barber. Narrated by Reese Zion. They say you don't get to run from your past. I tried though, hiding in a beat-up camper at my uncle's campground in New Mexico, drowning myself in cheap booze. I thought I could bury it. The fight, the trial, the guilt. But every night the nightmares came. Every morning I woke up a little emptier. I was a man who lost everything. My career, my reputation, my sense of self. I didn't even know what I was anymore. Then came the dream, if you can call it that. A blue screen, glowing and otherworldly, telling me Earth had reached its essence threshold, whatever that meant, and humanity was being shoved into some cosmic game. We had to pick a path, mana, ki, or faith. I didn't understand any of it, but something about mana spoke to me, so I chose it. That choice changed everything. When I woke up, It wasn't to the camper or the stale stench of regret. I was underground, surrounded by monsters. Kobolds, to be exact. It was kill or be killed. And for the first time, I fought not because I had to prove myself, but because my life depended on it. The system gave me powers, conjured weapons, combat skills, and a way to grow stronger. I clawed my way through those tunnels, battling everything in my path, until I faced the Kobold Matriarch, a fight that nearly ended me. Somehow, I won. When it was over, I stumbled out into a world I didn't recognize, clutching a city core I looted from her. That was just the beginning.
Would love your feedback on every new feature that we throw into Zero Means You're Dead. You liked it, you didn't like it, please leave a comment. Thank you so much. All right, for fans of Green Ronin, Mutant and Masterminds Superhero RPG, the 4th edition is now on Kickstarter. If you are a Mutant and Masterminds fan, just a few features from the Kickstarter. All with one die, 4th edition retains Mutants and Masterminds award-winning system that uses just one 20-sided die to handle everything, from checks to attacks to damage resistance and more, with added clarification and development of the game's system of checks. All in one, the Mutants and Masterminds Heroes Handbook remains all that you need to play and run the game. The optional Masterminds Manual, forthcoming, will offer a wealth of resources for game masters, but all the core rules of the game are complete in one book. Streamlined hero creation. Use 15 base hero archetypes, or archetypes, depending on how you pronounce it, each with a series of choices and options to quickly create heroes and be ready to play in minutes. The popular PowerPoints creation system remains available, and the hero archetypes are fully compatible with it. Those are just some of the highlights of the new 4th edition. So if you're a Mutants and Masterminds fan, definitely check that out. Pelgrane Press is hiring. They are looking for a customer and platform relationship manager. We'll have a link to check out how you do that. But if you're looking to get into the gaming industry on a paying basis, the opportunity is there. Nerdburger Games at UK Games Expo in 2026. Friend of the show, Craig Campbell of Nerdburger Games, has a big announcement. Nerdburger Games will have a small booth at UK Games Expo this year. While Craig won't be in attendance, 5 UK fans will be staffing the booth and introducing many Brits to Nerdburger Games. Craig wants to give big thanks to his staffers. Here's hoping we sell out of everything at the UK Games Expo. Good luck, Nerdburger Games. We hope everything goes well for you. Temeriare, did I pronounce that correctly? Role-playing game. Magpie Games is excited to bring you Temeriare, or Temeriare, the role-playing game, the officially licensed tabletop role-playing game set in the world of the Temeriare novel series by Naomi Novik. With over a decade of role-playing design and publishing expertise, Magpie Games is bringing the world of Temeriare to life in a tabletop role-playing game featuring our innovative Idana system, newly refined for draconic military adventures. For those not familiar, the series is about if you had Napoleonic Wars, but dragons were involved. So if you're a fan, if you're not a fan, if you've never heard it, I suggest checking that out. Trudvang role-playing game Kickstarter launches on February 17th. Trudvang is back. We're thrilled to announce Dragonbane Trudvang, a standalone tabletop role-playing game based on our multiple award-winning Dragonbane fantasy RPG. Our, meaning Freya Ligen, or Free League, is publishing Trudvang as a standalone Dragonbane setting. Trudvang is a world of shadowed woods and fathomless mists, of dreadful beasts and unsung heroes, of wrathful gods and nonetheless mystery. Deeply original, but with strong roots in Nordic mythology and in the original Drakon or Demoner. My Swedish is a little bad. I promise. I'm using. I'm getting better at it. Dragonbane Trudvang, produced by Free League under license from Simon. Cool minis or not? Yeah, cool minis or not. Simon will be launched on Kickstarter on February 17th. That is 13 days, less than 2 weeks from when you were seeing this live, and you can sign up to follow the project here. We'll have the link down below. The campaign will offer no less than 4 masterfully illustrated hardback volumes in Swedish and English. As an aside, whether you like Dragonbane or not, the production values that Free League puts into their games is astonishing. The artwork is always fantastic, and I enjoy their games quite a bit. So as one of the bigger indies, the mid-level indie publishers, highly recommend everything Free League. From Steve Jackson Games, it's 2 Steve Jackson Games announcements in a row. Munchkin 2nd Edition. Yes, you heard me right. After 25 years of kicking down doors and battling monsters, a 2nd edition of Munchkin is here. We kept our favorite jokes and monsters and added more. This edition feels the same, but it plays faster and setup is simpler. A new game mechanic, gold pieces, allows players to get change when selling things and to micro bribe their friends. Reference cards for each player have been added, so no more fighting for the rulebook, unless you want to. All the illustrations, including the box, game board, and cards, have been updated by Munchkin's original artist, John Kovalik. I should know this by now. Kovalik. My apologies, John. And the best part, it's backwards compatible, and guidelines for using cards from your 1st edition collection are included. Grab your friends or enemies because it's time to kick down some doors. Blades 68 spins the timeline of Blades in the Dark 100 years forward and launches you into the let me start that again. Blade 68 spins the timeline of Blades in the Dark 100 years forward and launches you into the radical swinging 60s. New playbooks, new crews, and new heists await you in the vibrant streets of Dagval in this 450-page expansion from the subversive mind of Tim Denny. It's time to get groovy. It's time to get grimy. It's time to get weird with Blade 68. If you are a Blades in the Dark fan, you have a new game setting to play with. Sword World is on Backerkit soon. The first English release of the oldest and most popular Japanese RPG is coming to crowdfunding. Sword World is Japan's most iconic tabletop RPG, played by generations of fantasy fans and featured across anime, novels, and pop culture. For the first time, we're bringing an official, full English release to the West. The crowdfunding campaign will fund the complete localization, design, and printing of Sword World 2.5 core rulebook. That is probably about 100 days off. I think 96 days off as of this recording. Hooded Horse CEO. Hooded Horse is a indie game, video game producer. Says indie devs should avoid most indie publishers. Says Mannerlord's indie publisher Hooded Horse. The vast majority of indie publishers are predatory and opportunistic. From Bannerlords to Against the Storm to Terra Invicta, Indie publisher Hooded Horse has enjoyed an incredible run since it was founded in 2019. With a launch of with a bunch of big successes under its belt, you might expect CEO Tim Bender to be looking to swallowing up more and more indie games to increase his chances of finding another hit. But not only is he completely disinterested in publishing more than around 10 games a year, focusing on stability over growth, his advice to indie developers is to avoid indie publishers entirely. People can hate me for this if they want, he says. But most indie publishers are not people indie developers should work with. The vast majority of indie publishers in their whole structure are predatory and opportunistic. We'll have a link to the full article from Fraser Brown at PC Gamer in the doobly-doo, where all the links are. But I thought this would be interesting to a lot of folks who are indie developers in the TTRPG space, or like a lot of our GoIndie stalwarts are indie or self-published writers. So I thought that having a CEO say to avoid indie publishers was interesting. I don't agree or disagree, but that's Tim Bender's opinion. All right, now you're here, what you're all waiting for. Sarah Madsen and I sat down and had an interview talking about not only the Night Hunters Kickstarter from Caldwell Press, but Sarah's journey through role-playing as an RPG player and designer. Hopefully you enjoy it. I know I did. See you after the video. We are here today with Sarah Madsen, who is a novelist and game content creator. Sarah, welcome to Zero Means You're Dead.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to have you on. So we always begin by asking our interviewees how they got into gaming. What were your first gaming experiences?
So I think my very first anything remotely resembling like tabletop gaming experience was Hero Quest board game back in the 80s, I think it was, where it was kind of like a D&D-esque adventure where one person had the booklet, right? And they were I don't remember what they called it specifically in the game, but basically filled the slot of the dungeon master, the game master. And it was a board, so you had your little, you created the dungeon sort of as you went. I had heard about Dungeons and Dragons. I knew the cartoon. I knew it existed out there in the greater wide world, but I didn't know anybody played. And I had no, the concept of the game store, hadn't really reached me yet. So, my first actual pure, real tabletop gaming experience was when I got to college. Actually, my boyfriend's friends, who later then became my friends, were starting up a tabletop game, and it wasn't even D&D. It was Imagine role-playing, so it was a fantasy role-playing game. And we got into that, and then we played a bunch of other stuff. We played Werewolf the Wild West. We played Vampire. I actually went through a bunch of other TTRPGs before I finally got to D&D. And then at that point, I think it was D&D 3rd edition when we finally started playing. But I've played 2nd ed, I've played 3rd ed, I've played 3.5, I've played a little bit of 4. But I also play Call of Cthulhu. I love Shadowrun. I love, I used to LARP Vampire the Masquerade for 15 years. In fact, that's where I met my husband. And so kind of at this point, it has spread out to be this giant huge hobby that I just love every iteration of. So yeah, absolutely.
No, that a lot of people do, especially when they started gaming in the 90s, absolutely came through White Wolf and its games. All those, Wraith is actually my favorite.
Wraith is very good.
and I will die on the hill that Shadowrun 3rd edition is the best edition of Shadowrun. No offense, Atlas Games.
I played it a bunch, but I didn't really pay attention to additions until very recently, where the concept of it changes the mechanic. I was happy to be playing whatever. I was I don't care. Let me do fun things and make characters and blow things up, and so
Well, yeah, and I think too that editions are something that the big box game or bigger companies play with more than like the indie companies, for instance.
Right. Yeah.
And I think of like for instance Steve Jackson, although they've been around for a while, just now coming out with a second edition tune, right? And that's 40 years old. So
yeah.
So how did you go from being a player to being, and talk a little bit about your writing as well, if that was a part of the bridge to being a game content creator?
So it was actually. So I've been sort of a writer since I remember writing really terrible vampire stories in like 5th, 6th grade, right? So like I've been a writer for a long time, since even before I was a gamer. And when I mentioned the Vampire the Masquerade game that I met my husband in, I was part of like this national organization called One World by Night that has games all over the country and in like multiple other countries where you can take your character. It's like an interlocking plot, right? So you can take characters everywhere. We had email lists where we had national and international plot lines that we were doing. And I got to meet a ton of really awesome people all over the country and make a lot of friends. And one of those friends, she does a lot of Pathfinder design, and she knew somebody who was looking, they were making their own, building their own campaign, well, not campaign, but like world book basically, and was looking for additional writers. And she knew I was a gamer and she knew that I was a writer. And so she was like, hey, would you maybe be interested in doing this? And at the time they were making it for 5th edition. I hadn't played 5th edition. I knew nothing about it. So I was like, I can't do any mechanics development for you because I have no idea. I'm like, but I can do world building. I can do lore. I can create characters and NPCs and things like that. That's fine. That's easy. And they were like, yeah, totally cool. We'll build in the mechanics behind you. It's not a big deal. We mostly need, because they were making a world book, they were like, we have this, big NPC, so we need their history built out and all of that jazz. So I did that for them and I was like, oh, that was pretty cool and neat. And I got paid for it. And I was like, oh, like until that moment, like the idea of like, yeah, there are people who actually like create the stuff that goes into these books, right? That hadn't ever been a thing that I was like, I didn't realize that was a thing somebody could do, right? I was like, oh, and that was fun and cool. And okay, sort of like, that was a fun experience. And I didn't really think much about it. But the guy that I had written for is Scott Gable, and he is one of the editors at Kobold Press, which at the time I didn't even know what Kobold Press was, because I was still very much, standard sort of consumer, not really in the weeds or into like, I didn't understand what third party creation for D, like I didn't understand any of that. I was just not in that part of the ecosystem. And so later Kobold Press was doing their Warlock zine, which was a smaller little Patreon produced zine of mechanics and lore and things like that. And they were looking for new designers and writers. And I guess whatever I had done, that Scott liked it. So he came back and said, hey, would you like to write something for Kobold Press? And I was like, oh, that's that. Okay, cool. Yeah. And I kept doing stuff for them and then started paying attention to other game studios and other companies that did things and started, whenever people put out calls for writers, I would respond, and some of them got picked up. I wrote for Cubicle 7 a little bit. My big first one was Wizards of the Coast reached out to me to do something for Candlekeep Mysteries. So I got an official Wizards of the Coast thing, and then it just sort of like hit the ball, started rolling downhill, and I was like, hey, I think I could just do this. Up to then, I had been freelancing, in the evenings and on the weekends, sort of in my spare time, which I know a lot of people still do and is totally valid. But I was like, I think I could make this like a full-time freelancing gig. Like, I feel like at this point, I've got enough connections built, enough stuff happening that like I could just transition, and I did, and it's been awesome. So that's the long story of how I got into it.
No, absolutely. That's fantastic. Do you have a particular item before we get to Night Hunters, which we will be getting to in just a moment? Is there one particular project that you worked on that you're really proud of, or that you really like the way it came out?
Oh gosh. I mean, so many of them. So I do really love both of the so far the Wizards of the Coast projects I've done, which was A Deep and Creeping Darkness and Candlekeep Mysteries, and then the Stygian Gambit, which was the casino heist in Keys from the Golden Vault. Really love both of those. I think I'm really proud of the first really big project that I got. In fact, it was the one that convinced me to finally like take the step to full-time freelancing, because I had been talking with my husband about the idea literally that day. And I was like, I think I can maybe do this. I'm like, but I haven't gotten any big, like word count size, big projects yet. Like any, everything I've done has been like 3,000 words, 6,000 words, maybe 10,000 words at the most, but not anything really chunky. And then like literally that day I got a message for Grim Hollow, their Citadel of the Unseen Sun adventure path that they did. It's this big like 5-book project. And I got a message asking if I'd be interested in it. And it was, I think, 40,000 words or 50,000 words. And I got a message and I sort of was like, well, I guess that's my sign. It's like literally was talking about that. And so it had a really tight timeline. It was the most, like the biggest project I had done up until that point. And it was really ambitious, and it was with a great team of other designers. And so I was really proud when I finally like I did it. I was like, I could do this. And I did it. Like I made this big thing and I made it work. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I got to develop 3 of the like towns on the surface of Astoya in the Grim Hollow campaign. And so I got to really like establish a lot of the setting. So yeah, it was really cool and fun. And
So as a freelancer and someone in the indie space, talk a little bit to folks who might be curious what it's like to work with a team of other freelancers, or, like partially with a team of folks who are, employed full-time with a company, and then partially the freelancers. What's that like? What's the juice of that?
Oh gosh. So it really depends on the project and the company and how they approach things. Some companies and projects, like if it's a small enough project or just depending on the way they do things, they will give me they'll provide me with the parameters. They say, this is the word count. This is what we need from you. I'll write it. I'll turn it in. And other than any like questions I might have for them or clarifications, there's not a ton of collaboration. It's just like I do it. I hand it in, brush my hands, and I'm done. And that's it. Other things like with Grim Hollow, it was a very collaborative project. All of the other freelancers were in the room. James Hay was the lead on it, who he just got promoted, or he got a job at Wizards of the Coast. So yay.
You just did a job.
Yeah.
Congratulations, James.
Yeah. So and we had all the other freelancers. We would have meetings. I can't remember the frequency, but we would have like meetings to talk about what everybody was doing. We would have the art lead in the room to sort of help us figure out what we needed art for, maps wise, but also just, spot art and character art and all of that. So it was a very fun, very collaborative sort of experience with that one. So yeah.
Fantastic. So let's talk about Night Hunters. How did that come about?
Well, Celeste from Kobold Press said, hey, we're doing this thing. So Kobold Press, I guess, decided that they were ready to do their own horror-based supplement. So there's Night Hunters, which is the subclasses and mechanics and curses and magic items and spells and villains and all of these other things. And then there's the second book that is Night Terrors, which are one-shot adventures that are sort of meant to be played alongside. You can play them alongside with the Night Hunters book. But yeah, so Celeste messaged me and sort of laid out the idea for the project. And I was so excited. I was like, yes, please. I would love to do the thing. Because I love all of the work that I do, but every once in a while a project comes around that you're just like, yes, this is
Super excited about.
This is my thing. I'm so excited. So yeah, I think I wrote 40 or 50,000 words for the book. So yeah, Celeste basically was like, here is all the stuff, like she was like, I would like you to do these things. Is there anything else that you're particularly interested in? We have something in the book called Dread Villains, which are your big bad NPCs that it's not just like a stat block and a short write-up about who they are. It is in-depth history. It is your big stat block, but it also provides you with the framework for their motivations and what they want and what they're doing. And there's like a step-by-step sort of like plan of various, evil schemes that they're going to be conducting throughout the course of the campaign.
Right.
And then they have like secondary stat blocks for their like right-hand lieutenant or whatever. So it's this very chunky section about like, here is a big bad guy and everything else that you need in order to implement them in a game. And so she was like, really want you to do the Dread Vampiress, like this big, like elder woman vampire of awesomeness. But then she was like, are there any other, they had a list of kind of the Dread villains that they wanted to hit. And so I got to pick from that. But yeah, just the idea, the whole book concept was just so juicy and good. And I was just, I was so excited when they came to me with it because I was like, yes.
So the setting itself, is it reminiscent, touching back to Ravenloft, is it reminiscent of Ravenloft or is it something really different than...
So Night Hunters is technically not a setting book.
Okay.
There's not specifically, it's not like here is Barovia, like it's not a specific setting book. Each of the Dread villains have sort of built in, like, this is their lair, this is the region that they control, and there is a little bit of information on that so that you can implement it in your own game, or you can take it and be like, you know what, this would fit really well. Like the vampire that I created, like she basically rules over this little valley, and you could plop that kind of wherever you wanted to, or you could use it as it's been developed. But it's more, Night Hunters is less, not really a setting book and more like a toolbox for players and GMs alike to be able to make characters and plot lines and campaigns and things like that in a horror setting. So
in the shadows something stirs, and the hunters rise to meet it. Discover new heroes of horror with cursed bloodlines, gothic callings, and powers forged in darkness in Night Hunters from Kobold Press. With new subclasses, monstrous lineages, and haunted origins, your story begins where the nightmares thrive. For game masters, tools of terror, including the new dark dice mechanic, dreadful diseases, haunting hazards, and tables to weave chilling tales. Turn every session into a tale of dread, danger, and finding hope in the darkest places. 13 villains, each with their own schemes, minions, and lairs, wait for the hunter, unprepared. Will you hunt the night, or be consumed by it?
For Night Terrors, the adventures, are they heavily connected, loosely connected, not connected at all?
I honestly didn't really have a part in Night Terrors. From what I gather, they are not really connected. I think they're a bunch of in like separate one shots.
Touching back on something you mentioned at the beginning, you know, at first you didn't do much mechanics wise. Do you do more with mechanics now? Do you help develop the subclasses?
Yes, I am fully immersed in 5th edition Tales of the Valiant and all of that jazz. So yeah, now whenever I take on a project, it's usually involves mechanics. If it's not a system that I'm familiar with, I become familiar real quick. So yes, I've at this point done basically everything you could do mechanics wise: monsters, classes, subclasses, stat blocks, magic items, everything. So
do you have a particular favorite mechanical item or items that you like to work on?
I feel like I do monsters so often because there's always this hunger from people for more new different monsters. I really like monsters in particular because they can be a really fun mix of like you get your little bit of lore at the beginning, right? So you get your fun sort of creative writing, quote unquote, like development at the beginning, and then like the implementation of that lore in reflected in the mechanics of the stat block provides a really fun like point counterpoint of like the floofy flavor and then the crunchy mechanics. So yeah.
Last question, as far as that goes, if someone were looking to get into freelancing, obviously on the begin with, you're not going to score big right away.
Right, yeah.
You know, that was a process for you, quite obviously. What's the best thing they can do? Projects they can take on that they can, you know, put out there, like on the DMs or other drive-through RPG, I guess is probably, or it, you know, on itch now you can self-publish on itch as well. So
I mean,
do you have
you
any
don't-
recommendations on that?
Yeah, you named a couple of them. Depending on what you want to write for D&D specifically, there is the DM's Guild, and each of these sites has their guidelines of what you can and cannot put up on them. So read those very carefully. The benefit of DM's Guild is you have access to more of Wizards of the Coast's IP. So like you can write within. So Wizards of the Coast has IP, so they have like their worlds like Faerun, like Barovia, things like that. Normally you cannot publish any of your own stuff that uses that because that's copyrighted by them. They don't want to share it. So DM's Guild gives you limited within certain parameters access to some of that where you can write within those worlds. I don't know about Barovia, don't quote me, but Faerun. That way you can be like, oh, I have this really great idea involving, you know, this specific city or that exists in Wizards IP. You can write for that. You can put it on DM's Guild. Now they take a bigger cut of your stuff because of that. It's kind of a give and take. But if you have another idea for a more like independent 5th edition setting that you're like, I have a setting in my brain and it uses 5th edition rule set, but it's not anything that Wizards writes. Like you could create that, you can put it on drive-through RPG. Yep. But itch is also a really good place for the more indie type games. If you've got like, I have a solo RPG that I want to write, or like a narrative collaborative storytelling journaling game, like that sort of fits more there. There's crossover, so don't feel like you only have to do one, but I would generally look at each of those individual platforms and kind of see where yours fits the best. My other suggestion would be start small. If you've never written before and you want to get into it, don't feel like you need to write a 300-page source book. You can write a 3,000-word one shot, you know, which is what I did. I put up a horror, a haunted house, shockingly, adventure on DM's Guild called The Haunting of Grim Tallow Manor. Anybody who's played a game with me at a convention has probably played that one. It's actually, I go back and look at it now and I'm like, oh, I didn't know what I was doing. Like the formatting is a mess, but you start somewhere, right? You get something on the page, you get it down, you get it organized and laid out and put it up either for free or 99 cents or whatever you feel like you want. You know, you can $10 if you feel like it's worth $10 or whatever. But that shows not only yourself, but also any companies that you may want to freelance for later that like, hey, I can finish a project.
Yes.
I can make it, I can write it, it may not be beautiful. It doesn't have great art. It has stock art in it, which the DM's Guild also has like lots of stock art packs you can pick up, right?
Yep.
It's rough, but it's done. And it's here, and you can see a thing that I've made, and then you can put that in a little digital portfolio, and you can be like, "Hey, companies, look, I am a published game designer. I have made things." So that goes a long way for if you are wanting to freelance. A lot of times, companies will want to see a portfolio, and that portfolio may only be one thing for you. Then that's okay. But you can point to a thing that you've done and say, "Look, I finished. I am capable of completing a project." And you can see kind of what I do. And, you know, that's a really big first step. And like I said, it doesn't have to be huge. It could be a handful of subclasses. It could be a handful of monsters. It could be some magic items. It could be an adventure if you want to do adventure writing. You know, don't get overwhelmed by feeling like you need to make something huge and like flashy and impressive. Just make something solid and put it out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and for those specifically for the DM's Guild, you know, a lot of that stock art they provide is actually really good.
Yeah.
Stuff, right? Stuff that we probably can't afford on our own,
right?
In other ways. So I think I know for the one I did for the 2014 5th edition, it had the perfect art for what I needed. So, and other communities as well. Miskatonic, if you're a Call of Cthulhu fan, Jonestown, if you're a RuneQuest fan, for those who play Chaosium's games, are just examples. Free League for Dragonbane and for Forbidden Lands. So there are a lot of opportunities out there with a variety of IPs that you can do.
Yes, yes. So. And if you are interested in a specific IP, I mean, just start Googling around where because a lot of these companies now have opened up stuff to you can publish third party. Because that is such an ecosystem, and it is such a good way to keep a game alive, that they want to see you creating in that space, but you have an official channel to go through, right, so that you don't get in trouble. So yeah. But yeah, like on Drive-Thru RPG, I think like there's Storyteller's Vault for Vampire and like World of Darkness games, and there's it's not just D&D. There's opportunities out there for like all sorts of games and things. So yeah.
Absolutely. So what does future Sarah have planned coming up this year for 2026?
Yeah. I've been working, a lot of it is not been announced, so I can't talk about it specifically yet. But I definitely have lots more of D&D and game design projects on the books. I have done another project for Kobold Press. I'm not sure when the Kickstarter for that one is coming up, but they're still neck deep in Night Hunters right now, so it'll probably be a minute. I've got a couple other projects with some companies that do like streaming and things that are pretty fun and exciting, and I can't wait till those finally get announced because I want to talk about them. I do have a novel coming out. I don't have an exact publishing date yet, but it's called When the Stars Bleed. It is a Mass Effect inspired space opera. So yes, that one will be coming out with Falstaff Books probably in the early part of the year. So, but we'll see. Awesome. keep an eye on my, pay attention. I'll tell you, I'll scream it from the rooftops as soon as I know specifically when. But yeah, that's getting close to happening soon. So I'm very excited. So.
It's always good to see another sci-fi writer, because I spend the day with romance writers and fantasy writers, and it's like, come on, people, give me a photon torpedo or something.
So. I love me some fantasy. In fact, the book I'm working on now is very much a fantasy, but I love I love the entire sci-fi fantasy bubble. I've always so the author Tanya Huff has always written sort of across that umbrella genre, from everywhere from like high fantasy to urban fantasy to like everything in between. And I'm like, that's what I want to do right there. I want to have it all.
Agreed. Thank you so much for being with us today. Really appreciate you talking with us. Where can folks find you on the web?
You can find me on Blue Sky. My username is Unfettered Muse. That's where I'm the most active, although I'm trying to separate myself from social media a little more these days because it can be a lot. Also, my website is unfetteredmuse.com. And generally when I have really big announcements, I'll put them up on the blog there. But you can also I have a page on my website that lists basically everything I've done. So if you want to see, I have another book out called Weaver's Folly, which is an urban fantasy with like a cyberpunk twist. You can click through to that. You can see all of the TTRPG work that I've done, some of my video game writing that I've done, everything. It's all there. So yeah, and then you can follow that through. My socials are also listed on my website. So if you're looking for them, they're there. So yeah.
Perfect. Again, thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate it. And thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you.
There I am. Thank you, Sarah Madsen, for being our guest this month for Zero Means You're Dead. We'll try to have Sarah on in the future. Hopefully you enjoyed it. For those watching in the future, those watching in the present, thank you so much for being here. As always, we appreciate you on the GoIndieNow network. Leave a comment. Oh, speaking of comments, wait a minute. We have one. At least one. Oh, yes. From Joe, or from GoIndie. Please hit the like and subscribe button and help us get the show seen. Yeah, absolutely. And great interview. Yep, I agree. A fantastic interview on Sarah's side. I still have a lot to up on. So, for Go Indie Now, Means You're Dead. I am SM. We'll be back in March. If you have RPG news or RPG adjacent news that you want us to get out, please contact us on Facebook or other social media. Be happy to get your story in. If you have something project coming up, let us know. Happy to talk about that. And if you're just into role-playing games, please continue to watch, like, subscribe, tell your friends. I'm not pretty, not polished, but I am persistent. Everyone, have yourself a good February. Stay safe out there, because it's always time to go indie now.